Let me guess, you're doing everything they're telling you to do and it's still not working. The algorithm keeps changing, your sales are up one week and down the next, and you're sitting there wondering what on earth you're missing. And everyone's got advice, right? Post 3 times a day, go viral on TikTok, build your email list, which by the way, I do agree with, be strategic, be everywhere at once. But the harder you try to follow all of it, the more exhausting it gets. So here's what's actually happening. You're being told tips that work in isolation, but don't connect to anything. Little tactics that promise big results, but don't actually build a pathway between visibility and sales. This video is for you if you're selling creative work online and you're tired of hearing advice that sounds good but doesn't actually help you make sales. I've been running my creative business for 5 years now and I've made thousands of sales, both digital and physical, and I've worked incredibly hard on things that led absolutely nowhere. So what I'm sharing today isn't theory, it's what shifted things for me when I stopped doing what I thought I was supposed to do and started doing what actually connected my creativity to the people who want to buy it. So let's talk about what actually works. Tip 1, use something like eRank to spot what's actually in demand. I'll leave the link to it in the description. So let's start with something that can feel uncomfortable for a lot of creatives, looking at the data. Because most of us didn't start our businesses with spreadsheets in mind, did we? We started because we loved making things. You picked up a paintbrush or a needle or some clay or an iPad, and something inside you said, this is what I want to create. And that pull was creative and visual, not analytical. But the moment you decide to sell your work, something shifts. It's no longer just about what you enjoy making. It becomes about what people are actively choosing to buy. And that's where things get a little bit tricky because those two things don't always overlap. So this is where I see a lot of creatives get stuck. You're making beautiful work that you're genuinely proud of, and yet it's not selling. Or it sells occasionally, but not consistently. And instead of questioning demand, you assume that you're doing something wrong, that you need better photos or better captions or better marketing. But sometimes, and this is the part that people don't like to say out loud, the issue isn't visibility, it's demand. So I use a tool called eRank, which is designed for Etsy sellers, but even if you don't sell on Etsy, and I don't anymore, I have my own website, the principle still applies. eRank shows you what people are actually typing into the search bar, what they're actively looking for, what's being bought, what's saturated, and what has quiet, steady demand without loads of competition. And this is the key thing that I want you to hear. If people aren't searching for it and they're not buying it elsewhere, it's going to be very hard to sell, no matter how lovely it is. So when I first started using eRank, it was a bit of a wake-up call. I had products named in a way that made sense to me. Like I used original character names like the Sushi Gang, and I used clever puns and creative titles, the kind of names that feel meaningful when you're the person who's created the work, but no one was searching for the Sushi Gang. They were searching things like Japanese artwork, cute food illustration, kitchen wall art. And once I realized that, I couldn't unsee it. This isn't about chasing trends or turning your business into something that you hate. It's definitely not about copying what everyone else is doing, but it is about being honest with yourself. If the thing you're making has very low demand, you've got 2 choices. You can keep making it purely for creative fulfillment, which is completely valid, or you can adjust what you make so that it meets real demand and can actually support your business. And for a lot of us, the shift isn't about abandoning our style. It's about making work that still feels like you, but it sits inside a category of people that are already buying from. So eRank shows you where demand already exists and where you might be trying to sell into a gap that simply isn't there. Unfortunately, sales don't happen just because something is good. They happen when good work meets demand. And once I understood that, things got easier. I stopped blaming myself. I stopped assuming I wasn't cut out for it or that I wasn't good enough. And I realized that I didn't need to work harder, I just needed to work smarter. So if you've been feeling like your work is strong, but your sales are unpredictable, this is where I'd start. Not with more content on more platforms, but with a proper look at the demand and ask yourself, is this something that people are already buying? And if not, am I willing to adjust what I make so that it can sell? Tip 2 is create content that lasts, not just what trends. So let's talk about content, specifically the kind of content that actually gives back. What I see all the time are creatives that pour hours into Instagram, designing beautiful posts, writing captions, scrambling to keep up with reels and jumping on audio trends. And then it's gone. 24 hours later, that post has disappeared to the scroll, and a week later, it's just buried. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Instagram. It's visual, it's fast, and it connects with your audience in a way that no other platform really does. And you can create content there that converts. I've done it. But the thing is, it burns fast. And if all of your marketing energy is going into a platform that relies on constant creation, it's no wonder you feel like you're constantly chasing visibility and never quite catching up. And for someone who already feels like they're winging it, already feels behind, this kind of content cycle can just reinforce the belief that you're not doing enough. And that is where evergreen content can change everything. When I say evergreen, I mean content that sticks around, content that shows up when someone's searching for it, content that gets saved, pinned, rewatched, revisited. It might not go viral, but it can compound and it can keep working long after you press publish. So platforms like Pinterest, where people are actively searching for inspiration and products, or YouTube, where videos are still being recommended months or even years later. There's blogs, which can position your products in context and then get picked up by Google. Even email sequences, which deliver the same message to new subscribers again and again. So it's not about being everywhere. It's about asking, what if some of the content you create could work for you in the background? So not all content is created equal. Some content burns bright and fast, and some content quietly builds momentum over time. So I used to only focus on the bright and fast, but when I started shifting even just one piece of content each week or each month to something more evergreen, for me that was usually a YouTube video over on my main channel, I began to see a difference. And again, this isn't about doing more. It's not about adding another platform to your plate. It's about slowly shifting your mindset from volume to longevity. And it's about asking, with every new thing you post, could this live longer somewhere else? Could I repurpose this into something that lasts? So you want the things you're selling to reach as many of your ideal customers as possible. And if your content is still being shown to those people years from now, well, that's a lot more potential sales in your pocket. Your energy and time is precious. And if you're going to pour it all into making content, let's make sure that that content keeps giving something back. And no, I don't think you should quit Instagram, but I do think that your business deserves support that sticks around longer than 24 hours. Tip 3 is plan that content. Let me tell you something that I really believe. If your content's a mess, your sales will be too. Yes, there are people that can crack SEO on Etsy, but for the majority of us, we create sales through the content that we make. Sales don't just come from the products, they come from consistency, from being visible, from following through on the ideas that get people to actually click. But when you're running your business out of a million tabs and half-finished notes apps, that consistency just doesn't happen. And I used to believe I could hold my whole business in my head. And for a while I did. But when we had our son and then our twins, my capacity dropped like overnight. Suddenly, I didn't have the luxury of winging it. I didn't have time to figure it out later or keep 20 loose ideas floating around in my mind. I needed somewhere for it all to live. Not just my content ideas, but everything. My offers, my seasonal campaigns, my product updates, the launch I wanted to run in 3 months' time that I'd only half planned in my head. So over the past few years, I've been building systems that allow me to run my business during snippets of time. And when people kept asking me, how are you doing it? I decided to build my creative hub. It started really simple as a few templates on Notion, but as I kept adding to it, it became more and more apparent that that just wasn't enough. So I built an entire piece of software to run your creative business from so that you can have time to focus on the stuff that actually matters, like being creative and earning an income from that creativity. So it's a space to plan your year, track your projects, organize your content, and hold that mental load. And the funny thing is, I used to resist structure. I thought it would feel restrictive, like a to-do list shouting out at me. But what I've learned is that structure, when it's built for creatives in a way that creative minds work, doesn't limit your ideas. It protects them. It gives somewhere to live and grow, somewhere you can come back to later when your capacity returns. So when you have a system that holds your content for you, you don't have to start from scratch every single time. You're not panicking on a Tuesday morning wondering what to post. You're not forgetting about the launch that you were meant to prep for in March. It's not about being perfectly organized or always on top of things. Trust me, I'm not. It's about giving your creative business the advantage of structure. So that's what my Creative Hub does for me and all of its users. It's the system that I built when I had no other choice. And now I just wouldn't run my business without it. And if you're at that point too, where your head is full, you're constantly wondering why no one's buying, maybe it's not your products. Maybe it's just that there's no system to hold those pieces together, because content drives traffic and structure builds momentum. And when those two things work together, that's when sales actually start to feel predictable. I'll leave the link to it in the description so you can check it out. Tip number 4 is focus and update your website. So I used to think that once my website and my product listings were up, they were sort of done. Like I could set them, forget about them, and focus on new things. But what I've learned is if you want to make consistent sales, you can't treat your shop front like it's finished. It's not a one-time setup. It's something you have to return to. That bestseller section is only powerful if it's kept up to date. If the products people are buying and talking about shift, that should shift on your website too. And the same goes for your Instagram highlights or your bio. You'd be surprised how many people land on your profile, tap those little circles at the top and form their entire impression on you and your brand based on those little aspects. But we often let them go stale. Stories from 6 months ago, products we no longer sell, or copy that doesn't reflect how we actually speak anymore. Big brands have already embraced this. They don't let their homepage sit untouched for a year. They test layouts, they tweak their copy, and they add new sections when they notice a drop in clicks. They curate constantly. And yes, you are just one person. You don't have a full marketing team that these big brands have, but that doesn't mean that you can't adopt the same mindset. Treat your online presence like a live space. Don't just create it, maintain it. Because the truth is, people are clicking, they are landing on your shop, but whether they buy or not often comes down to what they see in the first 10 seconds. Tip 5 is to use your FAQs to pre-sell without extra work. So here's a really simple shift that can have a massive impact. Answering questions before your customers have to ask. I know it sounds obvious, but most creative business owners don't realize just how much hesitation is happening in silence. For every message you get, every time someone says, hey, do you ship internationally? Or does this come framed? Or can I get this by Friday? There are at least 10 more people wondering the same thing, but they just didn't ask. They just clicked away. And it's not because they didn't want the product. It's because something really small created a pause or a moment of uncertainty, and that pause is all it takes for someone to say, maybe later. I used to think of FAQs as this boring little link buried at the footer of a website, but they're really not. They're one of the most powerful selling tools that you have if you bring them into your content. Because really, they're just giving people what they need to feel clear enough to buy. They're helping your customer feel a little bit more certain about what they're buying. And when something feels clear, it's a lot easier for them to say yes. Now, I'm not saying you need a giant spreadsheet or a fancy FAQ page. I'm talking about weaving those answers into the places your audience already is, like casually in your voice. So when I launched my Creative Hub, I thought I'd shared everything I needed to for my audience to understand what it was that I was showing them. But it wasn't until very specific questions came in that I realized I hadn't answered some of the basics. I was so close to it because I'd spent the last year creating it that it was obvious to me. But instead of replying to the same question again, I just made a reel. 30 seconds, film myself chatting through the features that people have been asking about, and instantly other people had clarity on what it was. That led to more sales. So you've probably already got a few of those in your inbox. The questions that keep popping up again and again, like what questions make you roll your eyes because you've answered them 20 times already? Those are the clues for your next few posts. And the best part is you're not starting from scratch. You already know this stuff. You've already written them out in your DMs and emails. You're just giving those answers a more permanent home, especially if you incorporate them into evergreen content. So this way, your content starts doing more of the talking for you. Your product pages feel more complete and your brand starts to feel more established. Because everything a customer might need to feel ready is already there waiting. If you're ready to go a little bit deeper into how to simplify your marketing and still make consistent sales, I've got another video that walks you through exactly that. You can watch it right here.